There's no doubt that video games can hold creepy details and secrets. Whether you've heard about the myths and legends of certain games, there's no denying the real terror that lies deep in some of them. Today, we'll be diving into some of the many instances hidden in games that are sure to freak you out. From an enemy's audio played in reverse screaming help, to disturbing images hidden in Japanese games, let's get into the creepiest discoveries in video games. Let's start with the hopefully obscure and unsettling one. 1998's California Speed, a simple racing game where you obviously race through California. However, if you launch the map, Mojave Desert, and ride the right side of the level, and pay attention to a white billboard above the track, well, you probably wouldn't since you can't really make it out. But if you ride real close and slow down, you can make out the sentence, "Sometimes God takes mommies and puppies away, and sometimes, just sometimes, I do." Jesus Christ, that's some dark stuff. Sounds like a serial killer's poem, doesn't it? And now that you've heard it, you probably won't unhear it thinking of this game or any other 8-bit racing game. Although the reason behind it isn't too bad, it was most likely put there under a time crunch and forgotten about. But why use such an unsettling sentence as just placeholder text? Jumping into a 2004 game, the well-known HalfLife II, where you play as our favorite Zen fighting human, Gordon Freeman, and his wake to a dystopian 20 years later than the first game. With the returning protagonist, how about an enemy, the zombie, one of the most common enemies found throughout the game and packed with a terrifying secret. Making your way through the game, you'd remember what sound they make. If you happen to set a headcrab zombie on fire, you can hear the pain just from that sound alone, but playing the same audio backwards produces screams of agony.
God, help! Help me!
Pretty damn creepy, especially how well the voice actors portrayed it. Just listening to the audio alone is enough to make me shiver. And alongside that horror that stayed in the game, there was also a cut enemy called Mr. Friendly. To start off with its already disturbing model, it was supposed to shuffle slowly with the sounds of nails on a chalkboard as it dragged itself towards you. It was also said to consume the corpses of the deceased behind you. With the corpses disappearing off sight, it seemed you'd never really know how close it was until you were caught dead yourself. 2018 Celeste, a beautiful 8-bit adventure game revolving around the protagonist Madeline conquering her self-esteem and mental health issues, which in light of that message features some unsettling undertones if you look a little deeper. The game contains an area known as the Mirror Temple. A song featured here called In the Mirror contains a hidden message. Around the halfway mark of the song will allow you to hear the whispering dialogue from Lena Raine, the soundtrack artist's fears and struggles, or so it seems from the audio. Give it a listen. Goddamn, once again, more disturbing audio. You can easily get lost in the track alone, as some have mentioned it embodies anxiety as a whole, with its suspenseful builds and slows of the music. The audio is very cryptic and hidden, as you barely hear the whisper, if at all, but can't make anything out. Once you have reversed it though, the tone you hear as she reads it out sets up how she might feel. From chapter 4, where this track plays, shows you a lot of the main character's feelings along with the lines that are read aloud. It's very distressing how slow and basically sad it's delivered. It makes you feel uneasy, at least to me. The audio message could also be referring to Madeline's anxiety and depression portrayed throughout the game. No matter which possibility it could be, listening to the dialogue is sure to upset anyone. Heading into 2004 once again, this time focusing on World of Warcraft. A very player-friendly, well-known MMO with its fair share of missable mysteries, but none more terrifying than the one we're going to cover today. There is a location known as the Forgotten Crypt, or Karazhan Crypt. At the time, before it was actually added, in 2017, the Forgotten Crypt was just cut content that wasn't accessible unless you died near the entrance, which would respawn you inside. Heading through the many random rooms and halls, which are desolate enough to creep you out alone, you'll eventually find yourself at a body of water, where you'll find several upside-down bodies chained beneath the water. Named the upside-down sinners, they were hung underneath for whatever reason. Thinking about it a little deeper, bodies don't float till a few days after death, so these are either fresh or weighed down somehow, as the chains are only connected to their feet. On top of this, the bodies are missing their eyes and hands. As you're just exploring randomly, it's pretty disturbing. Like many entries on this list, maybe not entirely meant to be found, but once uncovered, it's understandable why they kept it out of a T-rated game. This next one takes place in 1993's Sonic CD, a drastic jump from the previous two. It took the series into a perfect non-linear playstyle, but that's not without its hiccups. With that delay from Sonic 2 coming out, it seems like it gave someone the time to sneak some unsettling secret in. First, you have to unlock the sound tests, which is done by beating all of the time attacks for a total under 3 minutes. Once done, go to extras and sound tests, which allows you to put the code 12 and 25 and you can be brought to this piracy screen. With an unfriendly sight of Sonic wearing a creepy ass mask, with slow disturbing music, and creepy laughter along with the text, "Fun is infinite," it's weird to imagine this inclusion in a Sonic game. Especially for the several other codes to be harmless references or fun inclusions, having this nightmare fuel looking to find something more lighthearted is pretty scary. In a way, it sort of resembles a creepypasta with the obscurity and setup to unlock it. Regardless, it's very real, and there's no doubt you wouldn't be terrified if you stumbled upon it without warning. Let's jump into some games overseas. In 1995, an obscure Japanese game called Hong Kong 97 was released. A strange political, unlicensed shooter game which disturbingly shows a real dead body in the game when you die, shown the game over screen. The explained backstory is that the photo is from a shock video showing World War II deaths, so pretty messed up and disturbing to show in the first place. But it's not the first time something like this showed up in a game, such as in Telltale's Batman, but I'll cover that another day. Now that we're on the topic of disturbing images from Japanese games, Utaho no Tatari, released in 2011, a simple 8-bit horror game that is popular in Japan. Traveling through the game, you might run into this glitch or crash screen, producing this disturbing image of what looks like a woman with a cut-up face. To me, she sort of resembles Kuchisake Onna, or the slit-mouthed woman. With no idea of if it's real or not, which I doubt it is, it's still very ominous and creepy to see in game. 2015's The Witcher 3, the third installment to the series where you play as Geralt, our favorite monster-slaying mutant, containing a slew of sinister secrets and haunts revolving around the game. A very mysterious one can be found during the mission Tower of Mice, where you break a curse that haunts the tower, filled with the ghosts of the court that was killed inside. Heading to the second story, there is also a statue of a pale, skinny woman that triggers at random. There is a specific spot in the corner that does allow you to view them all the time, but only in shadow. For the quest to be filled with ghosts, this is creepy to stumble upon, especially as it's brief and stiff enough for someone to believe it's a glitch. Although, someone did find this very statue southeast of the corner of Velen, with candles around it, so maybe there was a glitch that accidentally spawned the statue in the tower, or it's triggered to scare you. Whatever the case, 8 years later, we still don't totally know. We all know the game distributor Steam, right? I'm sure you're asking, what could be scary about Steam? Well, have you seen the store library nowadays? Anyway, in 2019, it was reported that while idling on Steam, you'd hear disturbing laughs and squelching sounds, similar to someone being stabbed. Sounds terrifying, right? Well, this was the Steam Music Library playing audio from Amnesia: The Dark Descent. The other thing was that many users didn't even have the game installed. Some of these reports went back years prior with less disturbing ones, but Amnesia being the most common one is terrifying. The story behind why the sounds even played was due to pressing the enter key while Steam was open. This resulted in Amnesia music playing since the media files started with 00. I'm glad someone found the logical reason behind it, but my god. Not knowing what's going on when accidentally pressing enter to hear Amnesia audio playing is terrifying, especially if you're just browsing at night. We all know Silent Hill PT, right? The best game teaser that came out in 2014, setting up the next and best horror game yet. Except it never happened. Screw it, this demo was the scariest game ever, and it wasn't even an hour long. From Lisa showing up in every location, such as above the lookout in the hallway to the window, and finding the fetus in the sink, this game gets dark and in such a small amount of time, so there's no doubt PT is a contender for the scariest game. But what if I told you that whatever we all know now, it still gets scarier? Taking the camera behind the character, we know that Lisa is constantly behind you. From the moment you pick up the flashlight, she lurks behind your every move. So the next time you watch someone play, or if somehow you have the game, just remember that she's waiting behind your every move. This also makes sense when the Boundary Break channel covered PT. They discovered if you fall off the map, she'll jump scare you. Her being behind you would most likely trigger at your death, and her model is always visible. Probably because it's just a demo. Maybe that's what makes this game's horror so great. The subtle terror in such a small amount of time compared to a full game. All the things you could miss in such a familiar hallway, it's the unknown that really makes it terrifying. Games have a unique ability of allowing a person to control horror by themselves. Compared to a movie or other media, it gets more personal when you're really playing in whatever horror world you plan to be in. But what about corrupt media that glitches a console into a horror experience that you had no idea existed? The PlayStation 1 brings just that, a glitch that would occur playing an audio titled by the community as Fearful Harmony. If you inserted a disc that it couldn't read, whether that be a pirated or extremely damaged disc, the screen might just turn into a black, disproportionate glitchy startup screen playing audio sort of like wind chimes in hell on loop. Not entirely the most disturbing audio, but with how slowed it was and the most likely scenario being you're some dumb kid who pirated a game and figured you'd launch it at night as you felt safer doing it then, or maybe that's just me. I wouldn't doubt it would give you some uneasy feeling, especially as it starts with delay and slowly builds into the terror we know now as Fearful Harmony. There's plenty more console sounds that are scary, including another PS1 sound, but I'll probably cover that in another video. Finally, we get into 2014's Five Nights at Freddy's, the game that no one doesn't know the name of, the launch of a new genre of horror games. And many kids start and love of horror media. We all know the sounds of the jump scare. With the imagery and audio, it's sure to scare you your first few times. But what if I told you the sound was originally longer than the 1-second clip it plays? The full audio alone is pretty disturbing, as from the sound of the high-pitched scream, it slowly turns into a more normalized but disturbing childlike scream, lasting about 6 seconds long. However, there's another disturbing one, Golden Freddy's jump scare scream, which is a slowed down distorted version of the normal scream that we only hear for another second again. The full audio plays for 16 seconds and it's a lot more distressing. Give it a listen. Really unnerving, but interesting to hear the whole sounds from both cases, so the next time you play, just remember that they saved you from even more horror by giving you a fraction of the audio provided. That is, unless you pause the game mid-scream, then you'll hear the entire audio regardless. There we have it, a multitude of mysteries regarding gaming horror. There's plenty more which I mentioned but didn't talk about, but I think I covered the best of what I could find. The horror from these, yes, being creepy visually, but also with some of the backstories, as they're terrifying, and in the others, how they're unknown. I tried to explain as much of the entries as I could, but without the story on why they are, things become tenfold scarier. It's the unknown that sets them apart from other creepy Easter eggs and secrets in games. While some are really downright disturbing to find out, such as the Japanese games entries, others are just a cool and creepy mystery that no one knew was there, like the HalfLife audio or Sonic CD hidden image. At the end of the day, we play games to have fun, so when we're brought up with the mystery, it's always a fun rabbit hole to fall down, especially if it's a little scary.